2. Getting ready. So, every day after school, Max hurried to the professor's house and together they worked on the Beagle. Max helped by cleaning every knob and wire and piece of material. Graphite fibre, the professor called it, a material which was very strong and very light. They looked at maps of the moon, and Professor Boggle told him all about the moon's features. The mountains and the Rita Valley, Janssen Crater, and Hadley Rill. Max would study the maps while the professor looked over his drawings and changed something here and adjusted something there, and made new parts where new parts were needed. He taught Max about flying and what it would feel like in space where there was no gravity to hold you down. The spaceship is pressurized, so you won't need a spacesuit inside. But, of course, you'll want to get out and go for a walk on the moon, so you'll need this. And the professor pulled out from one of his many boxes a shiny silver suit with padded arms and a helmet with a clear window to look out of. Try it on. Max climbed into the suit, and although he felt a little bit silly, especially when Humphrey started rolling around on the floor laughing, he was starting to feel like a real astronaut. Now, this is to help you breathe because there is no oxygen on the moon, and this tube here will... And the professor continued to explain all the gadgets and attachments on the suit which would help Max to walk on the moon. Then, one day his father met him as he came back late from the professor's house. "Where have you been, Max?" he asked. "At Professor Boggle's." "And what were you doing there?" Max did not want his parents to find out that he was getting ready to fly to the moon. He was sure they would try to stop him. He did some quick thinking. He's helping me with my science project." "Is that so? Well, I've just received a note from your science teacher who says that you are 2 weeks late with your science project. Now, I don't want you to go to Professor Boggle's anymore until you've finished all your homework. You are spending too much time messing around at his house and not enough time on your work." "But Dad..." "No buts, Max. I'm doing this for your own good. Now, go to your room, please, and start your homework. I'll phone the professor and tell him you're not allowed to come over for a while." Max went up to his room, feeling very sorry for himself. He knew his father was right and he should have kept up with his homework, but he really, really wanted to go to the moon. And besides, what he was learning from Professor Boggle was a lot more interesting than some boring old science project. He sat at his desk and got out his homework. "What is the most interesting body in our universe?" was the question. "The moon, of course," he sighed. But he'd never get there. Not now. He looked again at the drawings the professor had given him and all the notes they had made. This was the ignition button, and here was the fuel gauge, and there was the directional control system. And if he switched this lever to automatic, then Caracatus would take over and fly the spacecraft. Max decided to have just one more look at the Beagle, and then he would do his homework. He waited until his parents had gone to bed and then crept quietly down the stairs and out the back door. He ran down the street to the professor's house and slid into the garage. Max went up to the spacecraft. It looked so impressive, all shiny and ready to go. He would just take one look and then go back home. He climbed into the cockpit. He looked at the control panel and pointed to each switch, trying to remember what it did. Ignition, fuel gauge, directional control. "Ah, wow!" said a voice behind him. Max jumped, frightened by the sudden sound. As he did so, his elbow knocked the ignition switch. With a roar, the engine started, and to his surprise, the garage doors opened.